guys. Okay, I'm doing classroom designs. This is my number 2 video. And this time I think I'm gonna go with a little bit less explanation. So make sure you watch the other video, and I'm just gonna go through and do some drawings, okay? All right, so remember, we're gonna do dry erase board first, or your smart board if you are in a K3 classroom. If you're in a preschool classroom, I'm not a big fan of smart boards used in those classrooms, like at all. Maybe if we were doing some research and we were like looking some stuff up and trying to find some videos online about what we're studying. But I really don't think there's a huge need for a smart board in a preschool classroom. Okay, so, or unless you want to be super creative and let the children have control over that experience and it not be a teach to tool. Okay, so let's just figure out where that might be in the classroom. I've done this side, I've done this side. Let's make it right here, slap dab in the center of the room. So there's our smart board. Okay, so our smart board is going to tell us where we're more than likely going to do our group time. So I'm going to draw out a rug. Okay, so now in this classroom, I'm going to say that we're going to use the rug space for our block area, okay? Because I keep saying that and I keep creating a separate block area. Now, if you have the space where you can make a separate block area, do that, because it's a better thing to do. What happens sometimes is when you transition kids into your rug space and we're putting blocks away. This is why I always put blocks away, because I did do this. I did actually have my block space also be my group time area, just because of lack of space. But what would happen is that sometimes we were still cleaning things up, or that we couldn't save things for later on. So that is one of the challenges. But if you're limited in space, it is an okay thing to do. So let's create a block. Let's make this our block area too. So I'm going to take some shelving, and sometimes it's 2 of them if you have them, and I'm going to put the little boxes here so that we know this is facing inward. So we're going to make this our group and block area. Okay. All right, so then once we come off the block area, we are going to create our sociodramatic play area, remember? And so, because we want cross play, okay? So we do want cross play. Now I'm gonna put this in this corner. Now I have to determine where the door is gonna be here. But let's make the door, oops. Let's make the door right here, okay? So that's going to be the exit. I'm writing kind of goofy. All right, and now our sociodramatic area. So I'm going to put the furniture right in here, okay? And then right here. Now, and again, I don't want to go through all of these things all over again, but remember, if your furniture is tippy-toppy, then you want to anchor it to the wall. If it isn't, or, you know, if it's not a whole lot of stuff, not a whole lot of damage can be done. There's some housekeeping furniture that's real flimsy, and I'm not as concerned with that falling over. And I would often then just anchor it to the other shelf, okay? Or you could even put a shelf back here if you were concerned about it being tippy-toppy. And that's one of the only few times that I recommend putting a shelf butting up against something else, is when it is tippy-toppy. The other thing you can do when you have concerns about that, so here's a shelf, okay? I'm gonna make bins because some of them are flimsy. You can even put a table right here, okay? And put some chairs. And so if you are afraid it tipping this way, you can anchor it right in here. Okay, so you can add some little anchors that will connect to the actual table, to underneath the table. That would work too. Oftentimes it's just enough to get it sturdy, that's all. Okay, so let me erase all these. All right, so we're going back to our sociodramatic play area. So this is the furniture. I'm going to add a little table right in here. Okay. And then I'm going to add maybe a small, this is like a baby cradle, okay? I'll just put CR there. And then what I'd like to do is add a rug to kind of define the space if you have a little tiny rug. And then if you have sort of a little couch, well, it's kind of a goofy couch, but a little couch would work there. And then if you even had a little rug, that might work there too. Okay, so it's your socio-dramatic play space. Okay, I'm trying to think if there's anything else in that. Now this is if you can't add another room, okay, because adding another room is a very cool thing to have. The other thing too that I don't have in here, and let me, I often talk about having a shelf for accessories or extra things. So let me take these two out, and I'm gonna make this smaller. All right, so let me do this and then add a shelf right there, okay? And then there's our entry, there's our entry, okay? All right, and now that space is kind of tight, and so, you know, I think it's such a good opportunity for children to determine what, how many kids can go in this space if that's needed. Sometimes it's not needed at all. All right, so now we move into our other parts of our classroom. So I'm going to, this feels larger than actual classrooms would feel. So we've got our blocks and we've got our socio-dramatic play area. Now let's kind of pretend that there's a sink space over here. Not all classrooms have a sink, but let's just pretend it's over here. And let's pretend that the bathroom is right there, okay? All right, so then knowing what we already know, right, about sinks and art area, so we want to put an art, we're going to create an art space here. Now, here's the thing that often happens. You know these tables, I think they look like this. What we sometimes want to do is put them together and make these super large tables. I don't recommend that unless, sometimes it can work and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes when the space is too large, it creates a difficult, too loud of an experience. The reason why I like smaller tables is that we can have conversations with one another that's more intimate. And again, it promotes that whole language development, is when we can have intimate conversations, meaningful conversations with one another. When our tables are too large, or when we try to push them together, kids will yell across the table to try to get one another's attention, and they tend to block out language. And what we want them to do is we want them to tune into language. So let's just say, let me see, I'm gonna put 2 rounds right here. Not all classrooms have rounds, but some do. Okay, so we'll do 4 chairs. Okay. All right, so if my art area is here, I'm going to make my publishing and literacy area right next to it. Now, if you have a dry erase board or a magnet board where you can kind of incorporate your literacy area, your word wall into your literacy area, that would be amazing. Not all classrooms have that, so we're going to pretend that this classroom does not have that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a shelf right in here because I want to divide the space. So we have art on this side. Let me write the word art. These are visual arts. And then I'm going to, now this, we're going to pretend here that we've opened these cabinets up so kids can use materials to go to our 2 tables. Okay. Now I am going to make this shelf part of the art area. Now in the center here, I'm going to throw this in there. I'm not a fan, and you all know I'm not a fan, but let's just say I'm required to have my horseshoe table. Okay. Awful horseshoe table. So let's say I'm required. I might stick that in the corner like that. Okay. Or I might put it over here. Let me get the publishing and literacy area here. So let's say for publishing and literacy, I'm going to put let's say I'm gonna use a long rectangular table in here. I would quite honestly prefer rounds in my publishing and literacy area, but it's not required. You know, you can, it's based on the children you have, how you do your direct teacher, all your direct teacher instruction, those types of materials, a small group instruction. It depends on how you do that and where you're comfortable doing that. So I'm going to make this a publishing and literacy table where we can fit a good number of kiddos. And let's say, let's see, I'll add a shelf here, and then this shelf opens into that space right here. Okay, remember our shelves need to be connected to tables as much as you possibly can. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, or 3 tables right now. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in my library area. Now, well, I don't know, because if, let's say this isn't preschool. Preschool absolutely needs to have a library area. The last video I did had a library area. I'm going to do my math area right now, I think. I'm going to create possibly, let me think. Let's see, if I had, okay. Yeah, so I'm going to put, let's say, my table here and a table here, okay? This is if I'm like, I mean, there's a couple different ways we could do this, but I could create my math here and my science here, okay? And my shelving here and my shelving here. All right, now let me take this out. And another thing I can do is sort of close that off, put this here, and then let's say I have another round, okay? And this is my science, okay? So do you see how I'm creating spaces? So this is closed and sort of a contained space. This is a sort of closed and contained space. That's what you want to do. Now, the key here, though, not the key, I think just to remember that if you don't have a lot of materials, you could share those two spaces together, math and science, because they do use the same, a lot of the similar materials. So you could even, you could even put your materials on top here. So some of the materials that could go here and here can be shared between the two spaces, okay? And then let's say, so then this whole area, let me sort of get this mapped out right in here, okay? So that whole space is our publishing space. And publishing literacy. We have art because again, we want them to be able to move between those two spaces. And then we have math and science. Now, this again feels much larger than what some classrooms feel like. So let's just say in this corner, and remember, if you need a safe place, I think everybody needs a safe place. That was a poor choice of words, but I would definitely recommend putting in a safe place. And so this here, I would possibly create as my library area, all right? And then again, if you have bean bags, if you have a rug that you can throw in here, and if you don't have a standing bookcase, maybe you have, and let's say this shelf goes over here, that you have baskets that you put on the floor with books in them, and you want them to be well organized. You don't want them to just be a bunch of books thrown in a basket, okay? And then let's create this backspace here. Actually, what I'm going to do, let's open that into that library. Okay? And then in this space right against the library, let me think, let me see how many we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tables so far. I don't ever see this. I'm trying to think if there's ever a time that I've seen this, but there be extra room like this, I may just open up my spaces a little bit more. But because this here is a big running space, you see that? So this to me is not something, because kids would go back and forth like this, run through here. I don't want that to happen. Okay, so what I might do, actually this probably would be where my circle time area would be, my group time area. We could create sort of a workplace, or maybe even a shelf. Now this is how you break up, you break up your area. Okay, so a shelf going here, and then maybe another table right here. Okay. And it may be, you know, you could do a deconstruct area here. So it could be that, it's probably too big for a deconstruct. Let me erase that. Let's say we do have this space. What I would do is add a deconstruct right here. Remember my two workbenches, and then the blue tape to identify that space. This is a 2-person for safety purposes only area. And then I might then put a shelf here. And let's say I have a small table that I would even butt up a table up against here, but drop it down. So take the legs off. So legs off. And then put some pillows right here. Okay. And maybe this is where we would have work in progress. We might have some STEM or some STEAM activities happening here. And yeah, I would still have some concern about this space right here, but again, it's not to scale. There's not very many classrooms that would have that much open space. So that's what I would do. Now, let's say, okay, let me switch this around here. So I would take this out of my publishing area. Oh, actually, I should have just flipped the shelves. So let's say I have a shelf here, and then some, yeah, to show that it's going that way. And then I could add another table here. Okay, so this would still all be the publishing area. The other thing I can do is I could take the 2 tables, and put them side by side. I don't love this. I really don't love it. I think it adds some chaos for some children. Oops. And so then the shelf would go here. Sometimes when we have these 2 tables put together like this, it makes for some chaotic experiences for kids because it's too much. They're overstimulated with the 2 tables right next to one another. But if you have the space, you can separate them out, and so it doesn't feel like they're on top of each other. Okay. All right, so that's another example of a classroom design, and this is one that we typically oh, safe place, forgot to put the safe place. So where are our corners? Where are our corners? Here's a little space that can be confined in a quiet space. Actually, let me erase that. Let me make it, actually, let me make it red. So it could be here for a safe place. You could, sometimes it works in the library area, and let me show you how it might work. So if I moved this and I made a shelf, or I put a shelf right here, okay, and that goes there. And then I put something right here to sort of define the space between the block area and the library. I might be able to put a little safe place right there. Okay, so that might work there, or over here too. So on this side, if you moved this furniture over just a little bit, you could create a little safe space there. As long as this part for the deconstruct area is well defined. So this deconstruct, then so that kids know for sure that they can't go in and out of that space. It might be a safety issue. So this would have to be very well sort of, you know, there was something there to protect kids from going to the other side. Yeah, and then even if we didn't have this, so let's say, let's take all this off, okay? You could have one of those cubes that a lot of classrooms have right here that have the big, they're actually, oops, I'm doing it the wrong way, but they have those big circles on there, and that could be a safe place there too, okay? Oh, cubbies. Oh, that right there. I forgot cubbies. All right, so let's just say this here, cubbies are up against this wall or hooks. So then maybe even right in there, this might be a shelf that goes this way. Small little, like little Target shelf, one of those small ones, anchor it to this wall here. And then you might have a safe, oops, let me do it in the right color. This could also be a little safe place right there, okay? And then this could be a safe place right here. So lots of places that you can kind of look at in terms of little nooks that you can still have visibility, but that might be helpful in kind of thinking about how to find a safe place in your classroom. You know, you need to look for visibility. They want to be little quiet spaces where only one child can use at a time, so it doesn't need to be an entire area. All righty. Hopefully that helps.